All right, duelists, welcome to GoatFormat.com's first sort of talk show stream. We're calling this Talking Goats, where we discuss pretty much any issues that are relevant to the goat community. I'm going to be your host for this first episode. I, of course, am ACP, and we've got Scully here with us.
Hey everybody.
All right, so originally we are gonna have Mascus on the stream too, but he kind of canceled last second because I think he had like a family commitment. So, and then we weren't able to find a replacement. So, yeah, I guess we're just gonna go ahead and get started. So first question that we're gonna discuss is how exactly, what are the ways that we could get new people playing Goat format? People who play Yu-Gi-Oh but have never played a match of Goat format before. Do you have any thoughts on that, Scully?
So I think it definitely has to be that we go after people that are already playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like just yesterday, I tried to
Right.
teach somebody who had never played Yu-Gi-Oh! Before. They'd played Magic a bit, Goat format, and I've taught other people to play before, and it's a stretch to try to get someone just all the way into Yu-Gi-Oh! So it's definitely gonna have to come from like other Yu-Gi-Oh! Communities. I think that we have to expose to Goat format.
Sure. So someone, they play current format, maybe they go to their locals every week, but they've never played Goat format anymore. How is it that we would convince them? Like, there's obviously like a lot of potential people that could play Goat format, but obviously the number of people who actually do play Goat format is like quite small, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 1% of the Yu-Gi-Oh population plays Goat format. How do we make that 1% like 20%?
Right, like in the past, I've been able to like go to locals that are playing current format and like pick up a few people that just like in between rounds I'd be interested in playing. But at that time, like I'm talking probably like 3, 4 years ago, there was just more veteran players, I guess, that had like some nostalgia for it that get interested. But like in my area at least, like there's just the tournaments in general are so much smaller now, even for current format, that I'll go there with like a cube or to play goats, and like the only people interested are the ones that come with me. So I'm not sure as far as real life playing goes to get people into it.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I think you sort of have, what in economics we call a network externality problem, which is that no one wants to play goats because no one wants to play goats. You know what I mean? Kind of like when you know, sort of like the issue with like social networks. When Google started doing Google Plus, no one moved over from Facebook to Google Plus because everyone was already on Facebook. So I
Hmm.
think it's like kind of the same thing with like starting like a new game because you have to like convince people to start playing. But then if there's no one for them to play with, how do you get like those sort of like first like early adopters, I guess you could say, to play? And obviously if you're like talking to people who are just like very frustrated with current, like they don't like the game, I think you can kind of be like, "Hey, did you know that goat format is a thing?" But it's hard because you have people that like
They're so invested already in
well, I mean,
current
it's not that.
format
It's like people
too.
just complain, but then they like don't want to hear solutions. Like I would say that like on average, if you compare Yu-Gi-Oh to a game like Magic or Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh players like definitely complain about their game the most, but then like it's just kind of like empty complaining. They don't really do anything about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, but personally, so I know I myself like it in a sense. Goat format bears like some sort of similarities to Super Smash Bros. Melee in the sense that like it's an old unsupported game that is like grown entirely by like the community. So I think maybe if we look at like some of the strategies that they did to get more people to play that game, like maybe we could see some of
I
the
mean,
same results. Um,
their big thing was the documentary, right? That got
right.
people playing again.
So I think like really why that documentary, like why it was so huge, is because like it told a story.
Yeah,
right? And
definitely. It's the story of the players and
right,
the
so I think
game.
like to an extent, I think it would help if like sort of GOAT format had like more like cool storylines that people were invested in. Like despite the fact that despite the problems that I had with him, like sort of the stuff that like Chris Perovic was involved in, I think kind of got more people in the game because like people like
Yeah.
liked that storyline of like, hey, he's like this like old like GOAT format pro who's like coming back and like crushing everyone, and I think like that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's right where I was gonna go with to it. Like having
So
someone like Chris who has like that legendary status that's a story in itself that
right. So
attracts
yeah, I mean, I
people.
think like if sort of like more well-known players like not only endorsed GOAT format but like seriously got involved with it, I think that could be pretty huge. Um, like I know, I was obviously like really glad when John Moore from House of Champs um sort of endorsed Go Format or our site at least. He was like, "Hey, check out this site; it's cool." But I think what would be even more helpful is if he like actually started like streaming Goat format again, like with Billy Break. Like he told me that apparently he used to do that, but like kind of stopped.
Hmm.
Um, and like I think even just like recording some videos of like two like really well known players. Like imagine like for example, take someone like Calvin from Luxury Gaming, and then take someone like Chris Perovic. And what if like you were to just like record like a match between them, right? Like you like hyped it up for a month, made it like best of 7 or something,
Right.
and then like did like lots of people watch that. Just for example, or like I don't know, or like Dale Bolito versus like someone in Goats, and like you recorded that, and like you did that sort of thing regularly.
Yeah, I guess that's something that we could do would be like try to list out names of who we think are players that would have that kind of interest and then reach out to people.
Yeah. Um.
It's a short list though. Like I don't know how deep that could go of how many players
Yeah,
that
and then I was
people
gonna say like the other thing is, I think also like what would really help is like being known for like having a good community. I think like some people based on like some experiences they like might have had think that like GOAT format players are like elitist or something. Like, oh, our format's like better than yours. Like, you're all
Yeah,
dumb if you're not playing it. That sort of thing.
I think part of that comes from like I don't have anything against nostalgic duelists, but I've heard many people complain of like them feeling that way about the nostalgic duelist group, and that's like a 2,000 member Go group on Facebook. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally um not a member, so I can't really comment on that. But like, I'm trying to. Obviously, since I know like most of the people watching this stream are like already on our server, like I just want to say that like obviously we have our rules about like hey don't be toxic, be respectful, and that sort of thing. Um, and like the reason that like Scully and I like have that rule is because like you're really just hurting yourself when you do that. Because like if you play goat format and like say like something happens where like it's Yu-Gi-Oh not chess, you get sacked. Someone opens like Trinity Magician of Faith and you're like, "Oh, you just sack me, like you're such like a dumb player, like I don't even know why you play this format, like you're an idiot, blah blah blah." Like all you're doing is like you're hurting the growth of the community, and then like eventually there'll be no one for you to like yell at, right? you know
right, I think Warren makes a good point in the chat here too of Go format players being toxic kind of towards current format players. Like you do get a lot of like jabbing or people saying why on earth would you
oh
play
yeah.
that, and that's really doing
Yeah, I
that is
mean,
not does not help.
yeah, I mean, like personally, like I don't really like current format. I really haven't for a long time.
No,
But
I'm
I
on the same
also
page
like
with
don't
you.
like try to get people to stop playing. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like if someone asks me how I feel about current, I'll also say, yeah, current sucks. But I won't be like, yeah, current sucks and you're an idiot if you play it. And like obviously like if X percentage of current format players also play GOATs, then like you would want as many people to play current Yu-Gi-Oh as possible. Because if current Yu-Gi-Oh dies, then Yu-Gi-Oh dies, and then if Yu-Gi-Oh dies, GOAT format Yu-Gi-Oh also dies.
Right.
So you know the goal is not to get everyone to stop playing current format because that would be counterproductive.
And I think that is something that some people think when you're trying to convince them to play goats, that you're trying to convince them to not play current format.
Right, yeah, I mean, there's two different games. Like, it's fine to play both. It's the same way that there are, like, some people who play multiple TCGs. Like, they play Yu-Gi-Oh! And, Magic, or Yu-Gi-Oh! And Hearthstone, or, whatever. Um, but yeah, anyways, I think we should move on to our second topic. So, and then before we do, for the people in the chat, our third topic today will be a topic chosen by the chat. So if there's something specific that you want to hear us talk about, please put your ideas in the chat right now. So then that way they'll be there for when we're done with topic 2. Um, so yeah, so kind of like related to our last topic, because I know like Sax said, oh, we need like big prize pools. Is what does the future of like online GOAT format tournaments look like? And I personally have some like what I consider to be fairly controversial views on that subject. So I think I'll let you go first, Scully.
So I feel kind of mixed about it in general. I personally do not like the multiple day ongoing tournaments for playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Online. I think it makes for tournaments that take way too long to finish. It's too hard to match up people's times. You end up giving losses for activity, and I think it just, after a few of them, they just fall apart. So my view on it is that it should be 1 day tournaments that people are setting aside the time for that day to play in a tournament.
Right. I mean, of course, the downside to that, of course, is given that we have a small community, it's like you've got to find a bunch of people that are all available to play.
And we're on different time zones.
Yeah, like at the same. Yeah, yeah. Plus, you want to cover different time zones if you like don't want people to feel left out. Although I think right now, like 80% of our traffic comes from North America. Obviously, there's like the 20% that doesn't. So,
Hmm.
so
But beyond that, for format, I think that it should be 2 out of 3 matches, and then
yeah, I agree.
like I don't think 3 out of 5 is the way to go, and I think that we should even have a time limit on matches if it's going to be 1 day tournaments.
Uh, I disagree with time limits. The way I would do it is I would run tournaments single or double elimination and have no time limit, because obviously the problem with not having a time limit with Swiss rounds is that like one match can just hold up the rest of the tournament.
Hmm.
But with like elimination, that doesn't happen so much. And like this is like I've played in time goat format tournaments before online, and people will just literally take 20-minute turns, and the judges will just not do anything about it. And I'm like, well, this is just ridiculous. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
the
like I want
problem
to
is
say
that
the
like you need to have like enough judges to like watch every match and make sure that people aren't stalling, and like that's just not practical online. Heck, it's barely even practical in real life, right? Like at YCS's, there's like a 100-to-1, player to judge ratio, and
hmm
especially with like the new time rules that people don't like there's just a lot of incentive to stall, and online, I feel like there'd still be incentive to stall. So personally, I think we can just avoid that issue by just running single or double limb, and then just telling people, hey, take as much time as you need.
for the size of the community right now, I think single and double elimination is the best way to go, regardless of time. But I don't know. Time has the factor of like certain decks are better with trying to go to time, and are you like just gonna eliminate
Right. I mean,
that part of it?
obviously, yeah. Like it changes like the side decks and like the main decks or whatever. But like that's not really my criticism, right? Like obviously, one of the main goals of having or one of the main, I don't know, sort of like important attributes about running a tournament is that you want it to be easy to run, right? Like we're not trying to like hire an army of people to run a tournament. We're talking like probably 2 or 3 people running it.
Hmm.
Um,
So you're
And I
saying you
think
don't
just
want it
telling
to be
people, hey, like play matches at your own pace, like it's double limb, just let me know when a match is like at that point I feel like the tournament kind of like runs itself, which is like what you want to go for because you don't want like a bunch of issues in your tournament and then like that affects how people feel about like the next one, right? Like no one wants to hear like, oh yeah, man, like I'm not entering these tournaments anymore. Like such and such player like just won because he stalled. Like even if it's not true, like there'll always be people like making those kinds of accusations.
at the same time though, then you could have a goat match take like two hours or longer,
Right, but if it's
and then someone's sitting there waiting for an opponent that entire time or holding up half a side of a bracket.
yeah,
Like we've done both with the FLCs and both issues have come up. So it's not like one is like clearly ideal over the other, I don't think.
yeah, I mean personally I think yeah, I mean like I see what you're saying, but I feel like the like stalling issue comes up more often than like the one person holding up the entire bracket issue because even if one match takes 2 hours, it's fine as long as like that same person like doesn't take like 2 hours again. Kind of right because like with double elimination or like with brackets you get to advance like the part of the bracket that like isn't affected, but you know what I'm saying, that isn't
Yeah, but
affected
like
by the one match that's being held up.
so say you're doing 1 hour time limit and you're gonna say, okay, this is gonna be a 6 round tournament, 8 rounds if you get to the finals. And then so I'm saying, okay, this is a Saturday. I know I have 8 to 10 hours free time. I can do this, it works. But then all of a sudden that turns into, well, now I'm over to 12 hours. And if it's someone that's on a different time zone, all of a sudden, like we had times where like Kizaru was playing until like 3 o'clock in the morning to finish FLC that
Yeah,
he
I
started.
mean, yeah, I can certainly. I mean, either way, there's going to be problems, but um, yeah, but I think the other thing that, of course, people are going to ask about is, prize support, if any. What will that be like? And that's where like, you know, I think my views are fairly controversial because I actually think having less prize support is better. And of course, I'm sure people say, well how convenient for you, ACP. You just don't want to give us prizes.
That's
Um,
not true at all.
but one, I think like say hypothetically in some universe, Bill Gates dies and leaves me $1 million that I have to use on running GOAT format tournaments. Now, on one hand, a lot more people would start playing GOATs if there is seven-figure prize support. But on the other hand, like it would be like extremely toxic and there would just be like tons of problems. And people would get used to the idea of, oh, I'm not going to play goats unless there's $1 million prize. So, the psychology of incentives, I think, like has to be considered. And if you're running like some big prize tournament, or if you're running any tournament, like I think like the motive has to be explored. Like, why are we running tournaments? Like, what do we hope? Like, what does the community get out of this? Um, so I think I think someone definitely needs to run goat tournaments, some format somehow. Um but I think you have to be careful about how we do them and like how that's going to grow the community because as I pointed out to a lot of people, like when FLC like started running more tournaments and doing less content, like their activity and web traffic went down because the view was like, hey, they're just running tournaments, they're not making new content. So it's like, tournaments are great for the people who are already playing GOAT format, but like content is good for people who are like sort of like just starting and trying to learn. And I think
So
like we need to focus like more on the latter, right?
so what do you think for like if we did a tournament every 4 months and that had a prize? Do you think that takes away from
So,
regularly playing goat format
all right,
still?
so here's my idea. Here's my idea. I would like to have some sort of like invite only tournament, right? Where there's two ways to qualify. One is by like being highly ranked on our ladder, right? the goat bot or whatever. So you do well there, you get invited to this tournament. And then the other way that you can get invited is by like having like some sort of like point system for like contributing like slash growing the community. So it would be like for like each for like the first message on the Discord server every day, you get a point. For playing like a ranked match, you get a point. For liking our Facebook page, you get like 5 points. For like inviting people to the server, like you get points. For writing articles, you get points. And then the top X people like on that ladder would also get invited to the tournament. Because by doing that, like it's all about incentives, right? But doing it that way, you're providing people with incentive to do two things. One, to play ranked matches and do well, and two, to grow the community, which is I think those are pretty good things to like give people incentive to do.
What would be interesting, I think, to do with the point system would be if you could spend those points to enter a player into the tournament. It doesn't even have to necessarily be yourself.
Yeah, I mean you could potentially do that.
Kind of like how they do the summit votings in for Smash Brothers.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, that would
So
be kind of interesting.
so you can earn these points and be like, oh well, I'm gonna enter in the best player from luxury games, and he wasn't on our server before, but now he's playing in this tournament and grabbing some of that audience with it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Um so of course we asked the chat to come up with a third topic, and the only one that was there's two given. Talk about why Noel's Diffusion deck is the best deck ever created. That seems somewhat sarcastic. Uh, and I'm not sure if there's much to really say there. Talk about why goat cards keep increasing in price. Is that something that you have any interest in talking about, Scully, or do you think? Because
We could
frankly,
talk about that. I only know a little bit about that.
yeah, I was
Like
gonna say I
once I
actually
bought mine, I stopped looking at prices.
right exactly. Yeah, so
I know they do
Flibba
keep jumping up still though.
Flibaboa, I'm probably butchering that, is saying that they're increasing in price because IRL goats is becoming more popular. That was kind of my assumption as well, right? Because obviously we know that market prices are just determined by supply and demand. Clearly, the supply isn't really changing, so that indicates that demand is.
Which
So,
could also be like how retro video games, like N64 games, are more expensive right now because people our age now have regular jobs and are rebuying all their old
yeah.
stuff. So I mean that could be part of it of
Yeah,
people.
I mean, obviously, like, GOAT cards increasing in price. First of all, like, I don't think GOAT format will ever be as expensive as, like, current format. I mean, just because, like, a lot
No.
of these cards have been reprinted a billion times.
The only thing expensive is the high end cards of GOAT format. I
Right, I
mean,
mean, yeah, I guess I wasn't sure if they meant high end or low end. Obviously, like
yeah.
if high end stuff is increasing in price, like who cares? People don't need to play like they don't need to have a foil goat format
Oh
deck.
yeah, no, it's only high end stuff going up. Like the only other cards that have gone up are like Blackluster Soldier and Scapegoat because they're played in Blackluster's at 3 in current format, and
Right.
Lynx I guess use
So yeah, let
Scapegoat,
me
but
let me log into or not log in, but I guess go to Yu-Gi-Oh TCG Player, like look up some card prices. Like wonder what Metamorphosis is right now because I know it was kind of expensive for a while,
I think
but
it's like $2 to $4.
yeah, I mean it looks like it's about like $5 a piece.
Yeah. Like the
Um,
biggest thing was they reprinted Delinquent Duo finally, so like that was like the one card that was actually expensive for a while.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you said they reprinted it, right?
Yeah, so no, like Delinquent was like a $20 minimum for a few years
Right,
there.
right, and now it's like $3, which is pretty good. I mean, obviously, like changing a $20 card to a $3 card like definitely makes it
Yeah.
easier for
I
people
think
to get in the
I'm
format.
pretty sure you can still buy a whole goat deck for like $60.
What about Thousand Eyes Restrict? I know like that was kind of like
They reprinted it.
oh they reprinted that too. That's pretty sick. So yeah, I mean
Matt,
like they're actually like reprinting like some of the more expensive stuff. I don't know if that's intentional on Konami's part. Um,
I think they just print for nostalgia money.
yeah, perhaps.
Nothing to do with actual Goat format, I doubt.
But yeah, another thing that I was gonna bring up actually was like for the brief era that like my locals ran goat format tournaments, we were like pretty generous about just letting people like proxy stuff, right? Like if someone was like, "Oh yeah, I got my whole goat deck, but I'm missing like one delinquent duo," we'd be like, "Yeah, we don't care, just proxy it," because like we're just trying to like get the tournament to fire, right? Like
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like if you went around and asked all the other players, "Hey, do you mind if I proxy?" It'd be like, "Well, if it'll make you enter, proxy all, proxy all you want within reason. I mean, don't show up with like a deck of 40 proxies, but if you have like 38 cards and two proxies, like no one cares."
I mean, I'm generally against people using proxies. Just I don't care if I'm playing against someone that's using them, but I've just seen in multiple times where like someone comes up against someone using a proxy, and then once that person loses, they all of a sudden start complaining and making a bigger deal about it.
Oh, like they lose and be like, "Oh, I just lost because my
Oh
opponent
yeah, he
had
doesn't even have
proxies."
real cards, and I'm paying to
Yeah, I
enter
mean
this
that.
tournament, and I've got real cards,
Yeah, I
and
mean that just sounds like those people are being dicks. Like, I mean, I'm just saying personally, like at our locals, it was like, yeah, whatever, right? Because like we're just trying to get the tournament to fire, right? Like it was like ideally we wanted like 8 people so we could do like just like a straight double limb or something. So if there was
right,
like
right.
7 people with real cards and one person who's like, oh, I want to proxy these 5 cards.
Even I'll say to like that was my experience of like we all agreed to it, and someone did complain after the fact. But even when Chris had his like 30-person Toy Wiz tournament, everyone at that tournament was okay with someone using proxies.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I didn't know that. Was that the one where someone impersonated me?
not that I know of, but it could have been.
Oh, did you ever hear about that though?
No, I didn't.
So, yeah, I guess I'll just tell this story and then we'll probably wrap up the show. So, so yeah, there's this tournament, somewhere like, northeast US that like, Chris went to. Like it was one that Tyler Nolan won with Zoo as it was called, the
Okay, so yeah, this is that tournament then.
Okay, so Tyler had this friend who apparently like was always mistaken for me at tournaments. Like, cause he just like looked kind of like we both had red hair. It's basically just stereotypical. All gingers look the same.
Hmm.
So Tyler so they just decided like Chris Provic had never met me IRL. So they just told this guy who was always mistaken as me, hey, like we're just gonna give you a bunch of facts about ACP, and you're gonna enter the tournament under the name Alan Pennington, and like it was so like bizarre because like Chris like after this tournament's over, he like messages me on Facebook and he's like, man, like I'm so glad you came, man. It was like awesome meeting you, and I'm just like, what the hell are you talking about?
Oh wow.
And like that was when he realized it because I didn't know they were doing this. It was like I was like, what happened? Like, Chris, are you on drugs or something? Like, I'll actually try to find the match on YouTube.
Oh, he streamed him too, and it's someone else playing him.
Well, yeah, there is one match that was recorded. I think it's like I think it was changed to like Alan Pennington imposter. Man, I can't find it anymore.
Oh, that's funny though. That's like the opposite of Roy St. Clair, rest his soul, trying to enter, dyeing his hair, trying to enter a tournament under a different name while banned.
Oh, I didn't hear about that. But yeah, so yeah, that was sort of like a really weird
He
thing that
tried.
happened. He played like a really weird deck too. He played like a goat control deck with like desk koalas and like one cannon soldier. He was like he's like, Alan, would you ever play desk koalas and cannon soldier in your goat deck? And I was like, heck no. So yeah. Anyways, um, I think we'll call it a day. Thanks for everyone who tuned in.
All right, thanks
Um,
everybody.
yeah, and this, if you like missed the first part of the stream,